everyone, welcome back to the layout. The Union Pacific Railroad Evanston subdivision in HO scale. My name is Daryl Cruz, owner and builder of the layout, and your host for yet another weathering video. Last week we did the auto rack train, 22 cars and 3 locomotives. Got that all done in a couple days. In the previous week, and then this last week, switched over to the empty coal train. In this case, 44 coal cars. These are all Rapido auto flood 5-bay hopper cars. This is the empty train. So I weathered all of these in addition to the 4 locomotives that I also weathered. I have on this train 3 locomotives at the head end and then a DPU in the back. So 4 locomotives all together. So there's 44 cars, and at first I was thinking I was going to do 3 batches of 15, or actually 2 15s and a 14. But then after I did the first batch of 15, I was like, I need to do this a little bit quicker. So I then put 21 here on the second batch. And I figured out that for the 44 cars, I could pretty well just do 2 batches of 22 each. That's probably what I'm going to do for the loaded coal train. But anyway, here we have 21 cars all laid out. And I'm using a Pache airbrush on loan from my good friend Bob Perrin. Shout out to him. And I'm starting off with the black, or I should say, I usually actually use dark gray. This is to represent, I guess, the coal that you would get from the coal dust and so forth that you would get on the bottom. So I'm spraying this from the bottom almost straight up. Try not to get very much, or just a little bit on the sides. I'm trying to get the hoppers, the bottom of the hoppers, and then just a little bit up on the side. And this doesn't really show up, tremendously on the finished model, but it is there, and you can still see it, and it kind of gives the effect of the black coal dust and getting up on the bottom of the cars. Also put black on from the top going down, and to get the coal dust that's spilling from the loaded coal onto the sides, and of course on the sides, on the tops, and of course on the sides of the coal cars. So I'm still doing the black here. Now, one thing I found, you have to kind of really concentrate. There's a couple of things that can happen. The most to worry about is getting, like right there, drops of paint from the cup, the paint cup. And if you're not careful, you move a little too quickly, you will have some drops of paint come out of that paint cup. That's not only a waste of paint, but if it lands on one of the cars, that's going to be an issue. The other thing you have to worry about is not having the hose hit the cars and have them roll off the table, which would be a disaster. I'm using just some rosin paper over a plain 6-foot table, and you can see the drops of paint on the rosin paper there. It's on like between the second and third row, or column, however you want to look at it. So the overall plan on weathering these coal cars is dark gray to represent coal dust coming straight from the bottom straight up, and then also dark gray on the very tops of the coal cars. And by the top, I mean the top sill, where you'll get a lot of coal dust on there. And then on the inside sides of the coal cars. So there's actually a little bit more involved. Watch out. Like I said, you really got to concentrate to make sure you're not messing anything up. So it's a little bit more involved to do the empty coal cars as opposed to the loaded coal cars, because you have the coal load covering up the insides. When you're doing the empties, you have to be really concerned about the inside of the coal car as well as the outside. I'm actually going to be doing them all pretty much the same. Even when I do the loaded train, I'm still going to weather the inside because you never know when you might change things up or whatever, or at some point I might sell these and want to make sure that they're done consistently. All right, so I'm still using black here now, or I should say dark gray, and I'm trying just to get a little bit on the inside of the on the inside of the sides, and then also on the top sill of the sides. And these are Rapido auto floods, and they have really good detail on the inside of the cars as well as on the outside. They have a lot of rivet detail, and then of course the bracing and so forth that they have inside the coal cars. So that's why I have 100% Rapido coal cars on the empty train. On the loaded coal train, I have a bunch of Rapidos, but then I also have some Walthers mainline RD4 hoppers, which are very similar to the auto floods. It's just they do not have any real detail on the insides. They do have a little bit of the bracing, but no rivet detail on the insides on the Walthers mainline. Of course, the Walthers mainline were a lot less expensive as well. All right, after I did the dark gray from below and then also from above, I then followed that up with rust from below, but at a little bit different angle, so that a lot got on the trucks and so forth, and then did overall from the top down with the sand color to give it an overall dusting. Now here's the finished product, what they look like. I don't really try to get a real heavy weathering on these. I try to get just a light weathering to hide the plastic look. But these came out pretty good, I think. I definitely want to make sure that it's not so much weathering that it covers up any of the writing, any of the decals. So I still want all the writing to be legible, and then a smooth application of weathering. Again, the dark gray from below, and then also on the insides and top sill, and then rust on the trucks and the lower sides, and then finally the ivory or the sand color from above for an overall finish. All right, once I got all 44 cars done, then I moved to the 4 locomotives, and I again put some tape on the windows, put some paint into the grills on these. I also found out I had 3 cars that I somehow missed, so I actually only did 41 of them, and then I have these last 3 to do as well. So for these, I again started with a black from below, and I was just Again, trying to make sure the bottom of the locomotives were painted. You don't really get a good look at the bottom of the tank, of the fuel tank, but it is visible depending on where you are on the layout. Here, you can't see it's out of the frame, but I'm doing the very front below. I didn't do a lot of black on the Canadian National because it's already black, but I did put some on there. So it was kind of a dark gray color rather than the jet black. So I also made a point of doing the last 3 coal cars as well. Alright, now I'm doing the rust color, and I'm making sure that I'm using a little piece of cardboard to make sure I don't get any overspray onto the sides of the locomotives. And what I'm trying to avoid here is sometimes if you get some on the sides of the locomotives, you'll have the bottom of the sides blocked by the walkway. And so you have weathering on the sides except along the bottom of the sides by the walkway, which misses it. So usually if you're aiming right with the airbrush, you can avoid that, but I just, on the safe side, put the cardboard there just to make sure it doesn't end up having that same effect. You see me putting the rust color on the coal cars as well. When I use the rust, I always try and making sure I get the extra amount on the trucks, because that lighter rust color helps bring out the details of the truck. Alright, so I'm doing the ends of the locomotives, and then at the same time when I'm putting them back down, I'm putting them down so that the unfinished side is facing up. So I'm doing the ends, and then also making sure that the unfinished side is facing up. I'm adding a little bit more after doing the first one here. And then here I'm doing the other side, again with the rust color. Using my mask again, almost forgot there. Again, I try to put a little more amount on the trucks. To see how it kind of brings out the detail of the trucks. Now I'm getting ready to do from the top down now with the sand color. Fortunately, the battery ran out on my camera, so didn't get a chance to videotape that. Here though, you get a look at the finished products. This is a Athearn SD70 ACE. Came out pretty good. This is a Scale Trains Tier 4 Gevo. I may try to lighten up the the grills a little bit. Got them a little too black. Might use some isopropyl alcohol to do that. This is again another Tier 4 Gevo. And then this is the Canadian National. So I was very, very happy with the way they turned out. Now, while I'm doing all of these, one thing I'm also doing is taking pictures of every single piece of rolling stock that I weather, and then I'm putting it up for sale on a Square site. Now, I'm not planning on selling these anytime soon, but my plan is to have this Square site set up for every single piece of rolling stock that I have, as well as other things that could be sold at some point in time. And the reason I'm doing this is because at some point when I pass away or move on to somewhere else, we'll want to recoup the value of all of this. So I'm doing this. I may live another 20 years or so, but I want to have this in place so when the time comes, everything can be sold as easily as possible by my children, and making sure that that money is available to my wife or to my children if I'm the last to go. So you can check out the site if you want. The URL is in the description. You can't buy anything yet, so it's not active, but you can take a look at what's on there. And let's see some weathered coal train running through the Evanston sub. Again, these are Rapido auto flood hoppers. This is a bridge across the Weber River. There's 3 bridges of the main line crossing over the Weber River. I have some canoes in there. Eventually I'll be painting those and putting some people in there, and also some paddles or whatever. That's one thing. When I visited there in May and June, the last couple times, there's always been people riding the rapids. It's not really a real strong rapids, but there's a lot of canoeing up and down, mostly down the Weber River. Here's the Canadian National as a DPU. I like to run this as a DPU because it's got a cool red light for the end of train. That's Taggart Tunnels, by the way. And here's another crossing. This is actually the 3rd crossing of the Weber River. These are a couple of Walthers through truss bridges. There's Wholesome Cement in the background. Now, one thing people mentioned about the weathering method that I'm using is that no 2 cars are weathered exactly the same. And the way that I'm doing it, you do kind of get some consistency from car to car. However, if you look closely, the cars are not exactly the same. The weathering pattern on each one is a little bit different. Now, on an actual train, you will still have some cars that have like excessive amount of rust or have some graffiti on it and so forth. So the weathering that I am doing is lacking those kinds of differences. However, all these coal cars are basically going through the same environment, so while each car is different and no 2 cars are weathered the same, there is some consistency from car to car. So you might consider this my basic weathering. And then when I get all my detailed scenery done and all the weathering done, I probably will come back and do some detailed weathering by putting rust streaks or things like exhaust on the tops of the locomotives, rust here and there, graffiti, definitely on the auto racks. Could definitely use a lot of graffiti. When you have auto rack trains, almost every single car has a major amount of graffiti on it. Coal cars, not so much. It mainly is determined by how big of a canvas the car presents. So box cars and auto rack cars, those big reefers, that's a great canvas for graffiti artists. It not only is a big space, but it's also white. Coal cars, not so much, not so big. And then also where they end up when they're standing still. If they're time when they're in a yard or whatever and not moving, that's when they get graffiti on them. So something like the auto racks and the box cars and so forth, which may be in an urban yard, definitely much more accessible to get graffiti on it. Coal cars on the other side basically get filled up at the coal mine, the open coal mines of Wyoming, where it's not very many people live out there. They have time to go put graffiti on them. And then they are unloaded at power plants, which probably have a little bit more security around and fenced in and so forth. So anyway, I found that coal cars usually don't have as much graffiti on them as opposed to box cars and auto racks and reefers and so on. But at some time I will want to start putting graffiti on. This is the Aspen Tunnels, just outside of Evanston, heading east. Really like the way the weathered trains look running through the scenery. It's definitely a big difference between having cars out of the box and placed straight on the layout. All right, this is our last run through. This is at Granger on the outskirts of town. The little grills are a little too black, in my opinion. So I might. My plan is to set them on their side and just put a drop of isopropyl alcohol in the grills, just enough so that the alcohol just goes on the grill part and not on the panels. And then use a paper towel to soak the alcohol back up again, hoping that some of the paint will come up, but hopefully not all of it, and hopefully in an even manner. We'll see how that works out. Or I might just leave it. But I think I'm going to do one more train yet. I think I'm going to do the tank train next week. It's getting colder here in northern Illinois. We still have a few days of 50s here and there where it's warm enough for me to go out my garage, but once we get past Thanksgiving, it's going to be too cold to do any more. So I'm going to do one more train at least, maybe a second train, and then I'm going to switch over to doing some detailed scenery work. So stay tuned for all that. Thanks so much for watching this video. Hope you have a great week. Take care, everybody.